I'm joined now by the chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party, Ben Wikler. Ben, thanks for coming on.
It's great to be with you here on the first day of early vote in the Wisconsin State Supreme Court election. We're in the final 2 weeks of the biggest fight of the first half of 2025.
Okay, so I want to dig into this race because, as you said, this is the biggest race in the country right now. To that point, we are seeing an unprecedented interference by Elon Musk in this race. Can you explain what he's seeking to do?
Yeah, so Elon Musk, world's richest man, the man bringing the chainsaw to Social Security and the Veterans Administration and cancer research and everything that people want the government to do, he's trying to stop. He has put in more than $12.5 million to try to buy Wisconsin's state Supreme Court majority. It's the most any individual has ever put in to any judicial race, certainly in Wisconsin history, I think nationally in the history of this country. And he seems to have two goals. On one hand, he personally could benefit enormously because he has a lawsuit working its way through the Wisconsin court system to try to bypass our rules around car dealerships so he can sell his Teslas here. So he can make a lot of money if he owns our state Supreme Court. But on another level, he wants to buy our state Supreme Court so we can overturn our democracy. Wisconsin Supreme Court is pivotal to the whole national project of American freedom and democracy because this is the state that tips presidential elections and potentially the House majority and the Senate majority. And we are the only state where the state Supreme Court came within a single vote of overturning the presidential election in 2020. So Elon Musk is funding these people going around flown in. I was talking to someone whose door was knocked on by someone who was flown in from Texas, put up in a hotel, and was carrying around flyers saying, Brad Schimmel, the Republican-backed candidate in the race, will advance Trump's agenda. Trump needs you to vote for Brad Schimmel. This is like a completely straightforward, we can abolish the rule of law if we just buy the court system. And that's what Elon Musk wants to do. And it's why it's so critical to elect Susan Crawford to fight back.
And can you talk about the broader implications for the rest of the country? Like, I view this as a test case. This is him saying, okay, if I'm I was already successful at the national level by giving Donald Trump $250 million. Now, if I can do this on a smaller scale in this race in Wisconsin, it's pretty much the test case being proven out that I can just spend money in literally every race across America and just buy the government across the United States.
That's exactly what it is. And it is not hypothetical. Musk has said that he will fund primary challengers against Republicans who don't follow Trump's policies.
Yeah.
He's also warned that he'll fund primary challengers against Democrats who get in his way. So in Washington, D.C., there are people in both parties who are terrified of getting on the wrong side of Trump and Elon Musk. And the thing is, Musk is doing stuff that is politically toxic. It is like the third rail of American politics, the electrified third rail in the subway that you're not supposed to touch to go after Social Security. And Musk is saying, everyone jump on the third rail now, and I will protect you. And if we defeat Musk's guy, if we defeat Brad Schimmel, elect Susan Crawford in this race, it'll show everyone in both parties that Musk cannot protect them if they do things that are hideously vile and unpopular. And that is a message that Washington, D.C. desperately needs to get. If Musk succeeds, then the opposite message will be sent. It'll say, no matter how bad you are, and Brad Schimmel is really atrociously bad. He's like, he gave lower sentences to a child pornography dependent after the guy's lawyer gave him a campaign contribution bad. He's like, he should not be anywhere close to the Supreme Court. But if Brad Schimmel can win thanks to Musk's money, then Republicans will be like, okay, I'll just go with whatever Musk wants. So this is like, for the whole future of the country and the way national politics works right now, we have to win this race and make Musk's involvement in this race backfire explosively.
Ben, can you talk about what's at stake with regard to Wisconsin's maps? For the first time since I've been involved in politics, we now have new fair maps in the state of Wisconsin. How endangered could those be in the event that Brad Schimmel is elected to the Wisconsin Supreme Court?
So this is one of the kind of like underlying plate tectonics issues in American politics is partisan gerrymandering. Yeah. Wisconsin had the worst partisan gerrymander in the country in our state legislature for a long time. We still have a partisan gerrymander in our congressional seats, which we'll talk about too. But in the state legislature, Republicans were on the brink of supermajorities in every election, even though Democrats were winning more votes in some elections, and it was always close to 50-50. When we won the state Supreme Court race in 2023, Janet Protasewicz beat the far-right guy, Dan Kelly. The state Supreme Court struck down those gerrymandered maps. And suddenly in 2024, Wisconsin flipped 14 state legislative seats from red to blue. It was more than any other state in the country. And there's a real chance that Democrats will win a majority in both chambers of the legislature in 2026 if the fair maps are still in place. And Brad Schimmel's donors and supporters are explicitly fundraising on the idea that he'll re-gerrymander the state legislature, which is exactly what happened in North Carolina. There, Republicans took over the state Supreme Court. They re-gerrymandered the state. Republicans got supermajorities. They put in place an abortion ban. Now the right-wing Supreme Court isn't even accepting the election result in a Supreme Court case that'll affect the Supreme Court. So the danger of democracy is very clear. And in the House, the Republicans are, again, running explicitly on the idea of freezing our congressional maps. Even if they're unconstitutional on the merits, they're saying these will be still in place. And so this is how we can make sure that Trump has a majority in the U.S. House. And that, again, it's not how courts are supposed to work. You're supposed to look at the law and the Constitution to decide what's happening. But they're making basically a promise that they'll lock in a 6-2 Republican majority in the U.S. House. And, you know, if we're a 50-50 state, if there were 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans in Wisconsin, that would be a lot of the way towards changing the House majority nationally. The GOP doesn't want the rule of law. They want total control. And that's at stake in this election, too.
Ben, can you talk about what it's looking like so far? I know, obviously, this is the first day of early voting. Can we read anything from the tea leaves by virtue of absentee ballot requests?
So what we're seeing is extremely high levels of interest in this race. We set a 60-year record in 2023 for a Supreme Court race not during a presidential primary. It certainly looks like 2023 and not like the other years in the race so far. It was always hard to say because people vote at different times. But what we're seeing, like on the ground when we knock on doors, we're like more than doubling the amount of door knocking and phone calling that we were doing in the 2023 race at this moment. I think Democrats are furious. And on the other side, Republicans have never been hit by this much get out the vote stuff that is pure partisan red meat. So we should expect really high Republican turnout too.
Yeah.
The question ultimately is like who turns out more and more intensively. If anyone from Wisconsin's watching, bring your friends to vote. It's not enough to vote yourself. Bring everyone that you know who will support Susan Crawford to the polls, because this isn't about a handful of 4% of the vote that'll swing either way in the middle. This is like hundreds of thousands of Democrats, hundreds of thousands of Republicans who've never voted in a spring election before. Which of those two groups is bigger will determine the outcome for this race.
Are you seeing any semblance of the town hall energy that's taken over this country, especially in red districts, has been unlike anything I've seen almost in the last decade. I mean, really, you'd have to look back to 2017, 2018, when Republicans were attacking the ACA for something analogous to what we're seeing right now. Is that playing itself out in this Wisconsin Supreme Court race as well? Are we seeing that kind of that same energy lend itself to this election?
Absolutely, in part because we're organizing town halls around this race. So our fight to stop Schimmel is in part called People versus Musk. To make very clear what this is about, right. We have a People versus Musk town hall tonight in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, in a Republican congressional district where the Republican isn't holding town halls. We have Governor Tim Walz coming over from Minnesota, and there's explosive response to this event tonight. Watch your screens for this. We've had events in Waukesha County, the kind of heart of Republican Wisconsin. People were jammed to the gills, practically hanging off the rafters. We had one in Sauk County, which is the most bellwether county in the state that voted for Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump. Again, in a public library in a 3,500 person town on a weeknight, we had 120 people RSVP, 170 people showed up. This is like anywhere in the state where Democrats organize a town hall, it is overfilled, oversubscribed, no matter how big you go with the room. And we're making sure that at every one of these events, we explain what Brad Schimmel is all about and what Susan Crawford is about, which is the rule of law and actually treating everyone fairly and equally in the courtroom. And people sign up in droves to knock on their neighbors' doors. That energy is going directly into this race. And that's why if we can make this the kind of bellwether, then any place in the country where you see these kinds of town halls spring up, Republicans should start quaking in their boots.
To that point, I mean, have you heard from Republicans specifically? Because obviously what we're seeing right now is the farthest thing away from conservatism that you could possibly imagine. I mean, even the claims that they're going after big government spending when they're looking to offset with Medicaid and food stamps cuts $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, which would still leave us with a major deficit and would still add trillions of dollars to the debt. I mean, clearly this party is not interested in conservatism. So have you heard from longstanding Republicans who are basically using this race to show their discontent with the Republican Party as it stands right now?
Yeah, this is like one of those dividing lines between MAGA Republicans and then non-MAGA traditional Republicans. There
Right.
are a lot of people who've been Republican for a long time who now feel like the party's totally left them. And they think Schimmel is a disaster. The idea that you have someone campaigning, Schimmel said at an event, he said, like, Trump keeps getting shut down in the courts and he needs a win. And the only way we win this is in the courts. We need a support network around Trump. The idea that a judge would see that as their job to be the support network for a politician, it's just like flies in the face of the founding ideas of this country, which
Right.
Republicans at one time professed a really deep commitment to. So there are definitely some Republicans who are so alienated by this that they are going to actively support Susan Crawford. But the reality is, a lot of people live in the MAGA bubble, and if you listen to right-wing talk radio, then you don't hear a peep about any iota of why any of this would be wrong. You think that judges are all a conspiracy. Elon Musk is openly talking about impeaching judges, and now Republicans in Congress are starting to actually like propose that they do that. And this race, in a way, it's like an attempt to financially buy the court system the same way he's trying to use political power to do it in the federal judiciary. So we should expect that a lot of Republicans will turn out to support the most kind of extreme MAGA version of this race. But there are some principled conservative Republicans who reject all of this. And I want the biggest coalition we can get from the left to folks on the right who have some kind of core principles about what American democracy is about, to everyone in between. I think this is an all hands on deck moment because we're in a national emergency right now.
So we're in a national emergency. I want to zoom in to Wisconsin specifically. What is at stake if Susan Crawford doesn't win this seat? What is at stake if Brad Schimmel becomes the majority on the court shifts from left to right, and all of a sudden they're able to relitigate cases from the past? How does that impact people in Wisconsin?
Well, to start with, Wisconsin has an abortion ban that was passed before the Civil War, before modern medicine in the year 1849, that makes abortions a felony punishable by 6 years in prison. And Brad Schimmel, when he was Attorney General of Wisconsin, he was asked, why are we keeping this law in the books, given that there's Roe versus Wade? And he said, well, if Roe versus Wade is overturned, we're going to be glad this is on the books. He loves this law. And right now, the law has been argued before the state Supreme Court. If Brad Schimmel wins, then I think it's very likely that he finds a way to get that law into effect in Wisconsin. And suddenly half the population is living under, the whole population lives under one of the most extreme bans in the entire country, no
Right.
exception for rape or incest or the health of the mother. So that is part one. Cases around workers' rights are very likely to come before the Supreme Court during the next few years. So Wisconsin is the site of massive, horrific union busting that Brad Schimmel was a giant cheerleader for when he was a Republican Attorney General. You know exactly how Republicans would rule on that stuff. Questions around voting rights and election certification and election sabotage. Schimmel spouts Republican conspiracy theories about elections. And again, Wisconsin came right up to the edge of overturning the 2020 election by disqualifying the absentee ballots in Milwaukee and Milwaukee County and Dane County, where Madison is. If it comes down to that kind of situation in the future, if Schimmel has the deciding vote, we're in real trouble in the state that was the tipping point in multiple presidential elections recently. And those kinds of voting rights questions, Schimmel so Susan Crawford, who was our candidate, she was the lawyer in a case called Planned Parenthood versus Brad Schimmel. She went up against it. She won that case, by the way. There was another case around the voter suppression laws Republicans put in. She won a relief from one of the most extreme elements that was basically a poll tax that was rolled back because that's unconstitutional. I have a poll tax. But Brad Schimmel's on the wrong side of all that stuff. Yeah. So Republican assaults on the basis of democracy itself, which affect the House and the Senate majorities, the presidential, the transfer of power, stuff that happens on the state level, workers, reproductive freedom, all that is at stake for Wisconsinites, plus this elemental question of whether oligarchs can buy our judicial system, all at stake on April 1st and starting today with early vote.
Well, look, we've got a big national audience who's watching right now, and I know a lot of folks who are not in Wisconsin are wondering how they can help. So what can we all out here do?
So you can help with every second of every day if you want to put that much effort in. But even 5 minutes, an hour, I'll take it. $5, I'll take it. If you go to peoplevmusk.org, you can watch our ads about the people versus Elon Musk. You can sign up to volunteer. You can join virtual phone banks from anywhere in the country. You're calling Democrats, letting them know about the race. It is a pleasant experience. They will thank you for it. You're not trying to convince someone to abandon their values. You're just telling people about a chance to exercise those values. So join us with the phone banking. donate. The Democratic Party of Wisconsin is driving a huge turnout operation, so we can use every dollar that someone can spare. Donate to Susan Crawford directly to her campaign, and then spread the word. Like, amplify, get the word out. The more we can make sure that people see what's happening in this race, the higher Democratic turnout will be. So this is something where, like, it's okay if you're kind of in a, if your friends are all Democrats. I want all Democrats to know about this race. If we can win this fight, it makes a gigantic difference across the state of Wisconsin. And the more people know about the race, then winning it makes a bigger difference nationwide. Because what we need right now is for Democrats to get up off the mat and fight back. And this is our first chance to do it in a way that really counts in a state that is bright purple. If we win this race in the face of Musk's millions, his 8-figure investment in buying a judicial race, then we'll show the whole country that if you fight back, you can win, and that the country needs us to fight back.
Perfectly put. We'll leave it there. Ben, I'm going to put that link to the website right here on the screen, and I'm also going to put it in the post description. Highly recommend for anybody who's watching right now. I know folks are agitating. They are looking to do something. They want to fight back. I know my audience in particular is looking to do that. This is the way to do that. If you're looking for somewhere to put your energy, even for 5 minutes or the next 15 days, please go to that website and figure out whether you can help. Phone banking, volunteering, donating, whatever it is you can do. This is all the marbles right now. So I'll put that link again right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Ben, as always, appreciate the work you're doing.
Thanks so much, Brian.